Wrestle Kingdom 15 kicks off what will hopefully be the beginning of return to normalcy in the world of pro wrestling and sports entertainment. This is the Rantin Review. Welcome the new Patreons on my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/Rassslin Rantin, Rassslin Rantin. Shout out to John Z, Ignacio Gonzalez, longtime listener, Jesus Escalante, YJK, Kosi Duncan, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Terp28, another longtime Rassslin Rantin listener, Carrie Moose. Oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher your name. I'm sorry, Carrie Muavis Simeon. You can feel free to slap me for messing up your name, bro. But we got Miguel Montaz and Craig Semple. Thank you guys all for being Patreons. Now again, if you're not on my Patreon, there's 3 different tiers. There's just a shout out one that's $1. You also will get a couple of freebies and some previews. There's the watch along for $5, and then there's the extra Q&A, which we will be sending out the notice for you guys to send your Q&As to me so I can do the Q&A video for the month of January. So again, if you haven't signed up for it and are interested in any of that stuff, definitely check it out. And on my Patreon, again, it's patreon.com/Rassslin Rantin, RASSLIN I know it's a hard thing to remember, but again, the tiers are really as cheap as I can make them, like $1. So if you really want to help out the channel and get some extra content, definitely check that out. The Rantin Review podcast, the first week in January 2021. And of course, you know what that means. It's time for Wrestle Kingdom from New Japan Pro Wrestling, the biggest pro wrestling, not sports entertainment, the biggest pro wrestling show of the year in the wrestling world. Before we get to that, I did want to let you guys know that my friend Courtney Bell, she does some yoga. So if you're feeling a little bit stressed out, you need lose some weight, or you just need to get some flexibility back in your life, or you just want a good workout, Courtney, she can help you out. She does free yoga videos online, as well as has her Patreon, where she has more exclusive, in-depth videos. She will also do personal videos for you if you want to help you out with any personal issues, maybe with your back or your knees or your legs or your arms or shoulders or whatever it is. She's a really awesome girl. I've known her for a while, so definitely check her out. I've been doing her yoga routines off and on for a number of years. And it has helped me regain some flexibility in my life, which is all very important, especially as you get older, like us wrestling fans who've been around for 30 plus years. So definitely check her out. You can go to yogacurrent.com, YOGACURRENT.com, and check out Courtney's Yoga Current playlist, free videos, and some other stuff available on her website. So, yes, as I said, this is the first week of the new year, and that always means Wrestle Kingdom for us pro wrestling fans. But more than that, 2021, hopefully for us, will be a more normal year, a return to normal. Everybody was so thankful to get out of 2020, one of the crappiest years in recent memory. I mean, although it's not the crappiest year by far in history, I watch a lot of history documentaries, and one of them was for the CNN has an amazing one. I think it's on Disney Plus now. It used to be on Netflix, and I watched that. I watched the whole series. They did the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. 1969 is probably the worst year of in the last 50 years. 69 was a crazy year. I think that was the year MLK got assassinated, Robert F. Kennedy got assassinated. There was all kinds of unrest. People were going broke. It was, I mean, as bad as it was in 2020. It was far worse in 1969. So at least we didn't have to live through something like that, which maybe that means that society is at least able to bounce back better than it has in the past. But hey, we'll see. We're all hoping that 2021 is a much better year. But as far as pro wrestling is concerned, like I said, New Japan Pro Wrestling, every January 4th, the tradition has been the Tokyo Dome show, I think since the early 90s. And that has been called for the last 15 years Wrestle Kingdom. So we're at Wrestle Kingdom 15 this year. Starting last year, they had it as a 2-day event. They've carried on that now as a tradition into 2021. And even though they still have a limited roster, I think they're about at 85-90% of their roster now. There's still some people who are kind of in and out and can't be at every single show as they used to be. But I think that's given opportunities for younger people like Master Wato. It's given opportunities to some of the old veterans like Satoshi Kojima, who had actually a fairly prominent match at this year's Wrestle Kingdom for the first time in a number of years for him. So we got to see some pretty cool stuff because of this. And with the pandemic and with the new routine of NJPW shows, I almost said WWE, the new routine of NJPW shows, shorter shows, 6 matches, 3 matches, an intermission, and another 3 matches. That's kind of the pattern that they have now. So it's kind of back to the pre-elite era, I guess, when a lot of Western fans started watching New Japan. I mean, even at that time, they still had those intermissions that I always thought were interesting. That's an old school thing that used to be in the States, too. Like WWF, if you watch the first couple WrestleManias, they all have intermissions halfway through the show. Same thing with a lot of the Crockett NWA shows back in the day. But the intermission's a way to clean the ring. But one of the things that brought to mind as I was watching the show, and they did the little intermission, and they kind of put a lot of commercials in there to announce some new stuff, which we'll talk about in a second. But it occurred to me that the attendance for this show was 12,600 plus people, which, they're doing 30% capacity or whatever it is they're doing. And I looked at that and I said, we could never do that here in the States. And it's just amazing to me that, Japan has now for 5 months had pro wrestling with audiences. Yes, they are 30%, 50% capacity audiences because of COVID restrictions, but they're actually able to have live wrestling shows that at least look somewhat like they used to be. And over here in the States, no. We still have Ring of Honor and Impact doing empty arena wrestling. AEW's got, limited amount of people at Daly's Place. And even that's sporadic. And WWE, of course, is still doing its Thunderdome thing. So it's rough to kind of watch this as a Western fan and kind of you can't help but look and wonder and just kind of contemplate the differences in cultures between the East and the West. And seeing all those, they did a wide shot at one point during the show, and I was just like, we could never have that here in America. We could never have, and it's just the difference in cultures, like I said. And over in Japan, and there's benefits and there's advantages and disadvantages to both cultures. Japan being so strict in some of its rules and laws, and its people being a little bit more, I guess I say they follow the rules a little bit more over there in Japan. Over here in the States, it's a lot more, we have our, we're freedom and rights and our freedoms and all this other stuff, which I'm not poo-pooing. I'm just saying that's the way we look at things. But I think that in this case, it's like, who really has the freedom? Because the Japanese are doing what they need to do for COVID protocol, and they're been able to have people attend live wrestling shows. And over here in the States, we can't. Could you imagine 12,000 plus fans at a AEW or a WWE show, and then you tell them, well, you can go to the show, but you have to social distance, you have to wear a mask, and you can't vocalize. You have to clap or use thunder sticks or stomp your feet. It would never happen. First off, I don't think a lot of fans would even want to go to that show here in the States because, for better or for worse, a lot of sports entertainment fans in the United States, that's part of the reason they go, is to make a sign and get dressed up and make draw attention to themselves and scream and shout and chant. And that's a big part of the whole thing for them. And to not be able to do that and just enjoy the wrestling show? Are you kidding? It's not even wrestling too. I don't think anywhere in the United States, well, I shouldn't say anywhere, but there are very few places in the United States where you could get 12,000 people together during COVID and have everybody adhere, at least 99% of the people adhere to the COVID protocols and be able to sit in a 3.5 hour wrestling show and not yell and scream the entire time. They can't even do it at Daly's Place with the 50 to 100 people they have on AEW Dynamite every single Wednesday. So I marvel at that. I'm perplexed by it to some degree. As a Westerner, it's kind of sad. And others, it's kind of like, well, this is part of the reason why I am drawn to New Japan, because it's not like over here in the West. And, sometimes I think some of us look at it as I have freedom to be as obnoxious as I want to be, so I'm going to be as obnoxious as I want to be. And unlike the Japanese, we're not going to sway from that. And that's why we can't have nice things. So off of that soapbox, though, I do think that the States, I'm expecting that WrestleMania will have a crowd. So I think we will get back to it, not anywhere near as quickly as the Japanese are going to, but I do predict that in 2021, AEW, Impact, WWE, NXT, Ring of Honor will have crowds in attendance. It's just going to be a very, very slow process. So we'll see. Now, as far as the show, Wrestle Kingdom, which I absolutely thought was fantastic. I thought the second half was fantastic. The first half had a little rough time getting to it. The New Japan Rumble, or now the Rambo, as they call it, for the King of Pro Wrestling, that was a shaky. That was a shaky affair. There were some interesting little in-ring storylines. A lot of it got missed by some of the commentators. I was listening to the English broadcast. There were some things that weren't picked up. There was some sloppiness in that match, but ultimately the point of that match was for the winners to go on to be the King of Pro Wrestling, and or go on to the 4-way for the King of Pro Wrestling, which will be happening tonight, tomorrow morning, depending on when you're listening to this and where you live in the world. And it wound up with Bushi, Bad Luck Fale, and Chase Owens, who had come in at number 1, so he was doing his Shawn Michaels thing, and Toru Yano, this must be historical. I can't think of any time that somebody won a Battle Royal without even getting into the Battle Royal. Yano comes out, he's number 21 because the Rambo is basically a Royal Rumble where pinfalls are allowed. He comes out number 21 as the last entrant, since he was 2020's King of Pro Wrestling. He takes so much time goofing off getting to the ring, and Fale is throwing out the young lions left and right. By the time Yano gets to ringside, they already have 3 other people left, so the match is over, and he wins, and he just walks right back to Yano is awesome. Yano is probably one of the smartest. He is, without a doubt, actually the smartest wrestler in the business today, because this guy is making a career and making a fairly decent amount of money too. He's a big entrepreneur by doing the least. I mean, R-Truth is pretty good with what he does in the WWE by doing very little and making money and being relevant by doing very little and just being a good comedy act. But Yano, I gotta say, he's got him beat, because Yano could probably be, and he probably will be 65 years old and still doing this shtick, and it will still work. He is smart. I got to give it up to Yano. So that's going to be concluded tonight. We're going to get, like I said, Bushi representing LIJ, Toru Yano representing Chaos, and Bad Luck Fale and Chase Owens of Bullet Club in the 4-way to determine the provisional 2021 King of Pro Wrestling, which of course is a title that has to be defended from now until the end of 2021. So we'll see if Yano can repeat or if Fale is going to get this title. I'm kind of got my money on Fale. But I could also see Yano also keeping the championship. So that was the first of 3 conditional matches for the next night. The second conditional match was the way we opened up the official Wrestle Kingdom show with El Phantasmo, who was doing his best. He had an Edge outfit, was acting like Sean Waltman, was doing references to AJ Styles, to Prince Devitt, to Kenny Omega, and I think just in general, El Phantasmo has become a mixture of a whole bunch of your favorite wrestlers in order to get himself over. He doesn't really even need to do that, though, but I think it does help him. It's not. he's annoying, but in a way that I think is beneficial to his career, because I'm watching him in this and I did get some callbacks and a little bit of a feeling of, watching Kenny Omega when he was first a cleaner in Bullet Club at his first Wrestle Kingdom as a cleaner. And there's a lot of similarities there with the way he acts and the behavior and everything else. And Phantasmo was an amazing wrestler and an amazing athlete. He was taking on Hiromu Takahashi. Of course, Takahashi was the winner of the Best of the Super Juniors 27. El Phantasmo winning the Super J Cup this year. So the two of them fought to see who would go on to night 2 to face Taiji Ishimori for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. Now this match, I think this match suffered the most from not having a vocal crowd. I think if the crowd had been vocal, you would have had a lot more. This match might have seemed a little bit more energetic, but that's not taken away from the performances. Phantasmo and Hiromu did an outstanding job in this match. Phantasmo, there was the one sequence where Hiromu went for his sunset flip powerbomb to the outside of the ring, missed it. Phantasmo flipped out, flipped back in the ring, ran over, and then hit Hiromu's own move on him. That was pretty good. Some of the stuff they did in this match was just outstanding. I think if Phantasmo keeps his head on straight and he keeps going the way he's going, I think he could wind up being a Gaijin Ace in about 2 or 3 years in New Japan. I think he's that talented and he's got the charisma to do it. Again, a lot of Kenny Omega in the way he's acting right now. Hiromu, however, the story, since Hiromu won the match, the story coming out of the match is that Phantasmo, who's been apparently super kicking trees during COVID, really hurt Hiromu's hand. And that's going to be the story going into his match tonight with Taiji Ishimori, is whether or not that injured hand, or broken hand, as he said after the match, is going to affect his match with Ishimori. Again, another set of nothing over the top, but just really smart booking. Just something to give the match an extra layer to it, without having to have a 20-minute promo. It's just Hiromu's hand's broken. He's got to face the champion the next night. He got beat up pretty badly in that match with Phantasmo, and now he's got to take on arguably one of the best junior heavyweight wrestlers in the world. So, well done on all counts on that side. The Guerrillas of Destiny can challenge the Dangerous Tekkers, Birdface Taiji, and Zack Sabre Jr., in a rare Suzuki-gun versus Bullet Club match, which you have two heel factions going up against each other. Doki came out to the ring to kind of counteract Jado, who was in the corner of the Guerrillas. And this match was slow to get there, but by the middle part of this match, it started becoming a really good tag team match, and all the way through the end. Tama Tonga got his butt whooped for the first 5 minutes. There's like a whole part of the match where Taichi's just choking them. That's all he's doing. He's just choking. Zach will come in and do a couple things, and then Taichi just choking him, and they're just making a mockery. The one criticism again about New Japan, and thank God JR's not commentating for them anymore, is that the referees have no power whatsoever. Like Marty Asami's counting to 4, they don't stop the break, so he doesn't disqualify him. He just starts counting over again. It's just like it does make the referees seem really silly. That is one of the problems with New Japan. They might have to scale that down a little bit. But otherwise, this was a really good match, a really good tag team match after it hit the halfway point. Guerrillas of Destiny came into this one having never won a championship match, or I don't think they've won at all at Wrestle Kingdom. Got that monkey off of their back. They have, in the course of a month, won World Tag League finally, won the IWGP Tag Team Championships again, won at Wrestle Kingdom, and now set a record as having the most title reigns of any tag team. That's right, GOD has now set the record as 7-time IWGP Tag Team Champions. So they've made a lot of history, and which is good because Guerrillas of Destiny, I've been thinking over the last year or so, since they haven't been on New Japan a lot, I've been kind of wondering whether or not they were going to continue on their progress and what else was left for them to do. But this was a lot for them to do, but they all kind of did it in 1 month. So now the question is, what do they do from here? I have suspected that once the travel restrictions are up, the number of new tag teams that are going to be available for them to take on and doing tours in Japan, FTR comes to mind first. I absolutely want to see a Guerrillas of Destiny FTR match. that would be absolutely amazing. And there's a lot of different tag teams around the world that I think we haven't seen GOD against. And I think that if they went on this kind of run going, it would be nice to see them hold the titles for a year and kind of defend them against a bunch of different tag teams from around the world. Now, I don't know what the plans are, because it could very well happen that FinJuice could wind up beating them for the titles, come up at New Year Dash or at the New Beginning, probably more likely. But congratulations to Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa for making history and for doing a great show. Now, they walked through the crowd, which is a big no-no. After the match, and even Chris Charlton made reference to the fact that they were walking through the crowd, which, that is not aligned with COVID protocol. So they're probably going to get in trouble for that one. And I made a mention of this. I hope Tonga Loa doesn't get fined again, because I remember back at the G1 Supercard, in the post-match, he said he was all pissed off because he didn't get paid. I don't know why that happened, but if you go back and watch the G1 Supercard post-match comments from the Guerrillas of Destiny, Tonga Loa didn't get paid. And even the Briscoe brothers made fun of him about that. Like, you didn't get paid? We got paid, So hopefully the Guerrillas didn't get fined for that, or something really bad happened to them or something. But that I was shocked to see that they were that. I mean, maybe it was a lapse of judgment because they were on such an emotional high at the moment, but who knows? Moving on to the next match. This one, I was not expecting much from this match, but it actually turned out to be a lot better, but not because of the person I thought it was going to be better because of. So Kenta, who's been carrying around the U.S. Championship briefcase for God knows how long now, with the right to challenge the U.S. heavyweight champion, who is Jon Moxley, who clearly is in the United States and has not been over to Japan since February, and he probably isn't going back over there anytime soon. But Moxley was a little busy in 2020 being AEW World Champion and with the travel restrictions and everything else. So they've been working this thing in New Japan and not forget about the belt. Now, before the match, we got a promo from Moxley on the screen. So he recorded at the NJPW Strong facility out in California in the States. And he finally addressed this stuff with the U.S. Championship and said, hey, you know what? Whoever wins this match, I'm coming after them. So it's kind of a flip there, like the Pale Rider, as they call him. I didn't know he became Gandalf the White. When did Jon Moxley become Gandalf the White? He's the Pale Rider now. So Moxley is now instead of waiting for the person to challenge him, he's challenging the winner kind of this match between Satoshi Kojima and Kenta. So Kenta takes on Kojima. Juice Robinson was supposed to be in this match. I fully feel now, given the way they set this up, that Juice was supposed to win this match. Juice probably was going to beat Kenta, which again, Juice Robinson, poor dude, man, he misses out. The same thing happened to him last year. I think it was set up for him to have a big win last year, and it didn't happen because of things. Man, and it happened to him again this year. He missed out on Wrestle Kingdom because of that briefcase shot, the orbital eye injury, and man, it's just I feel bad for Juice, man. I really do. But Kenta wound up facing Kojima. Kojima, who, for those of you who are newer fans of New Japan, and Kojima was a big name. Like I started watching New Japan again. Because I, for those of you who don't know my history, I started watching New Japan way back in 91 up until about 98, 99. And then didn't pick it up again until around 2013 and I've been watching since then until today. So I missed out that whole low period, the whole MMA Inokiism period. I missed all of that stuff from New Japan during that time period. Kojima was a big star in not only New Japan, but also in Noah, and he's been around. He was a pretty big deal at that time frame in Japan when New Japan wasn't the biggest wrestling company in the country. And, the English commentators did a good job about going through his history, but I was not expecting much from him. And he had a pretty damn good performance. Kojima can still go. And I think he just turned 50. And much like Minoru Suzuki and Yuji Nagata, these old guys in New Japan, they can still go. It's really funny. You would think they'd be all battered up and banged up. We'll talk about somebody who probably will be in a little bit. But that they wouldn't be able to go. Like a lot of American wrestlers, after 50, it's pretty much, we've seen Goldberg and The Undertaker, but Kojima could still go. He was hanging in there with Kenta for a good long while. Kenta eventually got the win, however, with the go to sleep and retained the briefcase. So now he will be finally, I guess he's going to fly over here to the States and they're going to have that match at that New Japan Strong place. I guess it's going to be an empty arena thing, but that would be a big boost to NJPW Strong and New Japan World subscriptions. However, we went to intermission and it was announced that there's going to be a TV show, a broadcast TV show for New Japan in both the United States and the United Kingdom. They mentioned something about the color purple. I'm very curious to find out what that it's all about, like the specifics. I'm not going to speculate on it now. I want to hear the announcement when they finally come out with it, which might be in the next, which will probably come right after Wrestle Kingdom, I'm expecting. But that's big news that New Japan will be on broadcast or cable television again in the United States and in the United Kingdom, because after the Access deal went down, they were pretty much out there. And then, of course, and then the whole AEW thing, and AEW got on TNT, and it was kind of like, damn, man, they kind of stole your thunder, guys. But New Japan's going to be back on broadcast television, cable television most likely in the States. They made a couple of other announcements. One of the funniest commercials they had during intermission, though, was Naito is sitting there and having this, I always mispronounce his name, Tsutomu. I can never pronounce his name. The president of New Japan Pro Wrestling. I always have a hard time pronouncing his name, and I don't want to butcher it too much here. But Naito is having a lunch with him, and there's this big pile of dishes and everything. Naito's eating all this food, and he's having contract negotiations, and they flash back to the last contract negotiation that Naito had, and now they're going to put money into a video game. So New Japan is now going to, Bushiroad, I should say, is going to put $5 million into a new game. Naito's leading the charge on this one, which is really, really funny. And then at the end of the skit, he stiffs them on the check. So for those of you who don't know why that's so funny, there's a legendary urban legend about, which is probably true after this thing, that many years ago, right? I think it was like in 2016 or 2017, that Triple H and some WWE execs had tried to recruit Tetsuya Naito, and they took him out to lunch. And Naito pleasantly listened to what they said, and then he just stiffed them on the check. He ate all this food, and then he dined and dashed on WWE. So, and so that's where that little joke comes from. That's where that nod comes from that commercial with Naito. I always get a kick out of that story because I think it's hilarious. So that's where that comes from for those of you who didn't know. So after the intermission, we get back. Then that crazy. The Japanese Don King thing, I'm not even going into that, but we come back and then we get to the second half of the show, which is pretty good. So the Great Okan is taking on the Ace, which I don't even know if we should call him the Ace anymore, but Hiroshi Tanahashi. And Tanahashi, of course, is on this downslide storyline, which Tanahashi's always on a downslide storyline, then from the come back and slide down and come back. But he's been on I think this is the last one. I think within the next year or two, he's going to be in the middle of the card fighting for the U.S. Championship, and then pretty soon he's going to be with Tenzan and Kojima and stuff, wrestling young lions within the next couple of years. But that's if his body holds up. Because one of the biggest things is Tanahashi is legitimately banged up. Like, his knees are powder. His back is screwed up. His bicep never healed. He never got surgery on it. I mean, there's a lot of problems with Tanahashi's body. He's one of the guys that I don't think will be wrestling when he's 55, 60 years old at a Wrestle Kingdom at a January 4th show in the future as a old-timer. I think he's going to be sitting at ringside and he'd probably be like Chono. He's going to be sitting at ringside and just being able to do commentary because he can't move anymore. The Great Okan, I think I liked him a lot more in this match with Tanahashi than any other ones. They did a lot of chain wrestling at the beginning, which was a nice change of pace. And then they got into more traditional wrestling. But Okan is not a traditional wrestler. He's brought back that Killer Khan Mongolian stuff and that shrieking chop. Once the Japanese fans can vocalize again, it's going to be a lot like Tenzan's his thing with his chops, his Mongolian chops, but the crowd's gonna do that little weird tribal screech that Okan does, which is a callback to Killer Khan, of course. But Tanahashi won this match. Great Okan did not need to win this match. This match was for Tanahashi to kind of help this former young lion, to get a prominent match at a big show, the biggest show of the year for New Japan, and to see if he could perform. And I think he did okay. I think Great Okan did well. He's not the typical, he's not like a Naito or Kota Ibushi or anybody like that. He's going to do a bunch of crazy stuff, but he's a solid wrestler with a weird, unique style that is an old school style, but he's brought back for the modern era. But Tanahashi won the match with a high fly flow. I wish he'd stop doing it. That's the main reason why his knees are powder. And they talked about it all night, how many times he fell on his knee. He was obviously having problems walking. Tanahashi, bro, just take 6 months off and get surgery, heal yourself up, man. And maybe you can perform at a high level, because I'm really worried that he's going to he's already seriously injured himself. But I worry he's going to have a career-ending injury on one of these matches if he doesn't get his body, let his body heal up a little bit. So, but that's not my call. That's Tanahashi's call. And, he knows his body. So I'm just saying it's a little uncomfortable for some of us. It's even uncomfortable for some of the comments. You heard that, but Rocky Romero said he was holding his breath through the whole match. It's getting kind of uncomfortable to see Tanahashi beating himself up in these matches now. So, I don't know. But the match was a good match, though. I did enjoy it. Semi-main event, Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada. Woo! We got a match of the year candidate already. It's probably not going to win match of the year, but it'll probably be in my top 20. It wasn't that great, but it was a damn good match. I tell you, the thing that put it over the top for me was damn near the end of the match. Ospreay, they're kicking out of each other's finishes, of course, but Ospreay hits a flush, solid, brutal-looking Rainmaker on Okada, and Red Shoe's hand was literally an inch off the mat before Okada got his shoulder up. They got me on that one. I thought Ospreay had won the match. If Ospreay, and I was like, no, Ospreay is not going to beat Okada with his own. Oh my God. And I thought he did. I thought Red Shoe's hand hit the mat and it was a 2 count. I was like, wow, they got me. But Okada came back, finally brought back the Rainmaker. They've minimized the amount of time he's spending on his money clip. That thing is not getting over. It didn't get over last year. It's not going to get over. Drop the goddamn money clip. Nobody likes it. The Japanese fans don't like it. The American fans don't like it. It kills the crowd in moment. It's a crowd killer for his matches. And I think that's part of the problem with his matches last year, is that money clip, which is basically the $1 million dream, the Cobra Clutch, whatever you want to call it. He builds momentum, and then he stops the momentum to go into something that looks like a rest hold. I mean, let's put it the way it is. It's not a rest hold. He was really cranking on that thing, but it just doesn't have the impact that I think he wants it to have, and he's going to keep trying to do it to get it over, but I don't think it's working. But despite that, him and Ospreay put on a freaking amazing match. That is something that you should definitely watch. If you're don't have the time, you want to watch just the best matches on the show, that's number one. And Okada won the match with the Rainmaker, putting himself back in the world title hunt. So the next match will be very important, and the main event for the double championship, Tetsuya Naito against Kota Ibushi. We were all holding our breath, because every time Kota Ibushi and Tetsuya Naito get in the ring, they almost kill each other. And fortunately, in this match, they didn't. There were some dangerous spots. There were some bad bumps. I think Ibushi landed flush on his head very early in the match, and I was like, here we go. But they managed to have it under control and didn't go overboard. And I think it was probably in mind to them that they've got that, one of them's got to wrestle the next night. Obviously, we knew who it was at the end, but let's not kill ourselves. So they did some dangerous spots, but nowhere near like the stuff we've seen from them before. And I think maybe that affected the appeal of the match until we got to the ending. The ending I liked. It was very fast, and Ibushi wound up he just outbeat Naito, and he hit the Komagoye for like 85 times and then got the pin, won it. And then here's the greatest part about this whole thing. I don't know if this was intentional or this was an accident, but Ibushi apparently didn't know he won the match. His music is playing, Red Shoes is ringing, the bell's ringing, the crowd's clapping and everything else. And Red Shoes is trying to raise his hand, and Ibushi's still trying to go for the pin. And it's like, and the Red Shoe's got to tell him, he's like, oh, you won. And then you see Ibushi's face when he realizes it, he starts smiling. He's like, what? Yeah, I won? I did? Yeah, I think it's part of his gig, because he did the same thing when he lost to Jay White, the briefcase. So he's like, I don't believe it, I won. And the coolest moment, Naito goes and grabs both the championships, and then he holds them up and gives them to Ibushi. That is a moment, that is a still that's going to last for a long time. That was a great, great moment between those two guys who are real life friends. And it's just amazing that this, again, you didn't need a 15-minute promo for it. I keep telling people, and I keep mentioning that because there's a lot of people in the West, in America, who don't understand New Japan, and they always say fairly ignorant things like, there's no storylines in New Japan. I don't understand the storylines. It's all in Japanese. It's like, you don't. Pro wrestling is body language before anything else. And just they didn't need to have a 15-minute promo to get this over. We knew what it was just by the body language. It's show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. That is a hard and fast rule. I'm an author, and that's my editors. Any book editor, any movie script writer, anybody who does anything, any kind of entertainment apparently outside of professional wrestling, will tell you show, don't tell. And that's what New Japan does really, really well. They show, they don't tell. And just that little gesture from Naito was amazing. Then, of course, Jay White comes in to ruin everything. He comes in running his mouth, yakety yak. Like, Kota Ibushi's like visibly bored by his promo. And he's just like, all right, get the hell out of here, dude. He's like, all right, we get it, we know. Well, yeah, get the hell out of here. So, Jay White lays down, and Jay White's just there to remind everybody that tonight, on January 5th, he wants to be, the last image we see from Wrestle Kingdom is that Jay White's holding up 2 championships. I don't put that past Gato in New Japan, but I think you might have a riot now, given the response to Ibushi winning the titles if Ibushi doesn't retain against Jay White. Plus, Ibushi's got to win. He's got to get his win back over Jay White for taking a briefcase from him. That's what the whole point of that was. So I'm excited to see that. Jay White, Kota Ibushi, who had an amazing finals at the G1, I think it was last year's G1 finals, was an amazing finals between the two of them. That was, I think, in my opinion, Jay White's best match in New Japan since he came back as a Switchblade. Hopefully they can duplicate something close to that tonight for January 5th. For the IWGP Double Championship. So that is my recap for the podcast of New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom 15 Night 1, January 4th. Lots of stuff going into Night 2, and I'm expecting some more surprises coming up in Night 2. As far as compared to last year's show, it's not, you can't compare it to last year's show. Again, it's a different era. It's a different time. You have like half the audience, not even half the audience you had last year. They can't cheer. Some of the rosters limited. They don't have the big fly-in stars that they've had before. So I think, though, for what they put on, this was a very good pre-2012 Wrestle Kingdom. I think it's probably... I can't judge the whole thing yet. I think it's probably on par with like Wrestle Kingdom 7 and 8. I think that's about the level that it's at right now for me. But we'll see. We'll see what happens here on January the 5th. It's not going to be my favorite Wrestle Kingdom of all time, but I'm giving them a pass, obviously. Like we all are giving everybody a pass in wrestling because we understand what the hell's going on. These guys are doing the best that they can, and they are doing a bang-up job for it. So I don't want the fact that I'm not as wowed by this show that to mean that these guys are doing anything wrong. They're doing their best, and their best is amazing. And I couldn't do any better. You guys couldn't do any better. So hats off to New Japan, Gato, Kazuchika Okada, Will Ospreay, Satoshi Kojima, Kenta, to even Tenzan and everybody who worked this show. They managed. Gino Gambino wasn't there. Sorry. How dare you, Kevin? He wasn't there, but Kevin Kelly and Rocky Romero and Chris Charlton, Shinpei, all the guys, Milano Collection, all the guys. Everybody who was involved with that production last night, the fact that they could have 12,500 fans in a big wrestling show like that and pull it off the way they did that's a miracle. So hats off to everybody associated with New Japan, including the fans. That was. I did not think I would see something like that, but fantastic. Thank God. Thank you guys for being New Japan. So that's it for this edition of the podcast. We will be coming back. I will have a bonus edition for those of you who are on the Patreon. If you don't know where my Patreon is, go to patreon.com/Rassslin Rantin with 3 S's, RASSSLIN I will be doing a watch along this week from a match from Wrestle Kingdom. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to have to be a Patreon to find out. And I will also make an announcement too that thank you guys. We have back on the YouTube channel, which I have trying to rebuild. We finally hit that 1,000 subscriber mark, which you need to monetize. Now I just need to get the 4,000 watch hours. I think I'm at 2,500 watch hours, so I need 1,500 more watch hours. So hopefully a lot of people will watch these videos, the videos of my Wrestle Kingdom reviews, because I'm gonna put this up on the this podcast up on YouTube as well. But thank you guys for checking it all out. Until then, one last final thing: the Wrestling with Finance playlist will be debuting later this week. A lot of you guys really expressed an interest in the Wrestling with Finance video that I posted last week about WWE stock and personal investing, and wanted to hear more about it, and were asking me questions about investing in stock market and all that stuff. So I figured, I was like, all right, I've been thinking about doing that for a while and merging finance with wrestling into a show called Wrestling with Finance just seemed to all be serendipity. So we're going to be starting that later this week. I've recorded 3 videos for it, and they will be rolled out over next weekend. So thank you guys again for listening to the podcast. Check me out on Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, the YouTube channel, all the different places. We got stuff going on for you. We got freebies and gifts and prizes everywhere. So definitely stay tuned for podcasts, reviews, and videos here on the Rant and Review. Have a good day.